The Galactic Empire arrived in Earth's orbit with an overwhelming presence. Their massive ships appeared like dark stars in the sky, blotting out the sun across entire cities. The first broadcast from their flagship echoed across every frequency on Earth. The voice of their emissary was cold and commanding. As he delivered the message Earth had been waiting for, the ultimatum came clear and swift. The Empire demanded tribute in exchange for peace. Earth was to surrender its resources, its technology, its entire future, or face utter annihilation. The weight of the words was a blow to humanity's collective spirit. No longer were they the rulers of their own destiny. No longer did they control their future. The Empire's ships were a constant presence in the sky, their weapons shimmering with unknown power. The sheer size of their fleet was beyond anything Earth had ever seen or imagined. Every government on Earth called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in hastily constructed command centers, even as civilians flooded into the streets to see the fleet hovering above Earth's cities. The message was the same: there was no escape. Submit or die. The people were torn. Some believed resistance was impossible. Others clung to hope that a solution could be found without bloodshed. Debates raged behind closed doors in governments around the world, but the answers were few. Fear spread like wildfire. Some called for peaceful negotiations. Others screamed that Earth could never bow to such a tyrannical force. But what could they do against a galactic empire with fleets that spanned light years across the stars and technology that seemed far beyond human reach? In a secret underground facility, a group of scientists and military strategists gathered together, working under the radar of the world's governments. Their leader was an older woman who had worked in the depths of Earth's space programs long before the Empire had arrived. She was the one who suggested a solution no one else had dared to consider. It was a last-ditch plan, one born out of desperation. It had been buried for generations, forgotten by all but a select few. The truth was that Earth had been visited long ago by beings who were not the Empire. Their technology had been left behind, buried deep beneath the frozen expanse of Antarctica. And now that hidden treasure was the last hope humanity had. They had found it by accident, but now it had become the key to survival. They had to act fast. The Empire's fleet was already moving closer to the planet's surface. Their demands had been made clear, and the clock was ticking. If humanity was going to survive, they had to move before it was too late. The woman's voice echoed in the room as she ordered her team to prepare the secret ship buried beneath the ice. It was time to awaken humanity's forgotten weapon. The weapon was far more advanced than anything the Empire could have expected, but unlocking its power would be a dangerous and uncertain endeavor. The question was not whether they could do it, but whether they could do it in time to prevent the fall of Earth. Once the Empire made its move, humanity's future would hang in the balance. The summit of Earth's leaders convened in secret. Their faces were etched with exhaustion and dread. The weight of the Empire's demand pressed down on their shoulders. The planet's greatest minds gathered in a single room as military strategists, diplomats, and politicians clashed in heated debates. But all of them shared the same fear. The Empire's power was unimaginable, and Earth was but a speck in the vastness of the galaxy. No matter how much they tried to reason or bargain, the harsh truth remained: Earth was defenseless. Before them, the politicians were divided. Some argued for surrender, hoping the Empire would honor their word and spare humanity. Others were adamant that any compromise would be the death of freedom, and that humanity should fight back at all costs. But how could they fight what they had never seen before? The military leaders insisted they needed more time to prepare, more time to understand the threat. But there was no time. The Empire's demands were explicit, and their patience was running out. The room buzzed with voices rising higher in desperation. The generals argued about possible defenses. None of them had ever faced a force of this scale. The diplomats pleaded for negotiation, as if somehow words could save them. And yet the truth was becoming clearer by the minute. Humanity could not win this battle, not with their current technology, not without a miracle. It was then that a small voice spoke up, cutting through the chaos. It was the leader of the rogue group of scientists and military strategists, the woman who had found the ancient ship in Antarctica. She was calm, her voice steady, even as the room turned its attention to her. She laid out her plan quickly and succinctly. She spoke of the weapon beneath the ice of Antarctica, a forgotten relic from a time long past, a piece of technology that had the potential to turn the tide against the Empire. She explained that the ship had been buried for centuries. Its creators were not from the Empire, but from an even older civilization, one that had mastered technology far beyond anything Earth had developed at the time. Her words were met with skepticism at first. How could a single ship possibly stand against the might of the Empire? The generals demanded to know, but the woman's confidence did not falter. She explained that this ship was not like anything humanity had ever built. It was a vessel powered by energy sources and weaponry unknown to even the Empire. It was their last hope. But unlocking its full potential would take time and resources. The summit shifted uneasily. They had no choice. The woman had given them a lifeline. Even if it was uncertain, it was the only chance they had to survive. She was given permission to lead the operation to extract the weapon. But even as they agreed to her plan, the atmosphere in the room was thick with doubt and fear. They knew the Empire would not wait forever. The clock was ticking louder now. With each passing minute, Earth's fate seemed sealed, but in the depths of the underground facility, preparations were already underway. The rogue group of scientists and military strategists had set their plan into motion. Despite the risks, they had to awaken the ship before the Empire made its move. They had to act fast before humanity's future was decided by an enemy that would never understand what it meant to be human. As the underground facility hummed with activity, the rogue group worked tirelessly to unlock the ancient ship's secrets. Time was against them, and the pressure was mounting. The woman, known only as Commander Voss, stood at the heart of the operation, her mind racing with calculations and decisions that could mean the difference between humanity's survival or extinction. The ship beneath the ice of Antarctica had been dormant for centuries, but it was far more than just a relic. It was a key to unlocking a power far beyond anything the Empire could comprehend. The group of engineers, scientists, and military experts worked with a sense of urgency that bordered on desperation. They had only limited access to the ship's schematics, but even those revealed enough to know this wasn't just a ship. It was a weapon, one designed to fight and conquer the most powerful forces in the galaxy. But there was a catch. The ship's systems were complex and alien in nature. Most of the technology was so far beyond human understanding that trying to activate it felt like trying to decipher a language that had been forgotten by time. Some of the engineers had their doubts, but Voss was unwavering. She knew the stakes and believed that this ship was humanity's last hope. In a matter of days, the Empire would land on Earth, and they would demand their tribute or make good on their threat of destruction. The first test was underway. The command center buzzed with tension as they initiated the process to wake the ship from its long slumber. They had managed to get the power core functioning enough to test its systems, but there was no guarantee the ship would even respond to human commands. It had lain dormant for so long that even the most advanced technology on Earth was struggling to interface with it. Voss watched the screens closely, her eyes narrowed with determination as the engineers worked tirelessly, trying different methods to coax the ship into life. Then something unexpected happened. The lights in the facility flickered as the first hum of energy began to pulse from the ship. The low vibration sent ripples through the room, and the monitors flickered to life, displaying incomprehensible alien data. Voss felt a rush of hope flood through her veins, but it was quickly replaced by caution. They had triggered something, but what had they awoken? They had no way of knowing if the ship would be able to respond to their commands, or if it would remain silent. But then the ship began to move slowly, at first like a giant creature stretching after a long sleep. It began to rise from the depths of the ice, a massive shadow looming beneath the frozen surface of Antarctica. The sheer scale of the ship was almost incomprehensible. Its design was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Intricate geometric patterns adorned its hull, and strange symbols pulsed across its surface. The ship's energy output was growing steadily as its systems powered up and began to synchronize with the human interface. Though much of the ship remained inaccessible, a small group of engineers began to test its weapon systems. The readings were off the charts as the ship's energy signatures spiked in ways that defied explanation. It was clear that this weapon was not like any other humanity had ever encountered. The questions began to rise in Voss's mind. What kind of civilization had created this ship? And why had they left it behind? What secrets did it hold? And most importantly, would it be enough to challenge the might of the Galactic Empire? But the answers would come later. For now, the only thing that mattered was that the ship had awakened, and it was humanity's best shot at surviving the Empire's wrath. With the ship now online, Voss knew that the true battle had only just begun. They would need to train their forces and learn how to wield this powerful technology quickly if they were to stand any chance of defeating the Empire that was coming to Earth. As the days passed, the underground facility was alive with activity. The ship had awakened, and the crew scrambled to understand its power and purpose. But there was little time for questions. Their mission was clear. Earth's survival depended on the mastery of this mysterious technology. Every available resource was funneled into studying the ship's systems, from its energy core to its weaponry and defense mechanisms. But it was a slow and painstaking process. Most of the crew had never seen technology like this, and the learning curve was steep. The engineers worked tirelessly to decode the alien systems and interface them with Earth's own technology. But progress was slower than anyone hoped. Meanwhile, Commander Voss stood over a holographic display, watching as new data flooded in from the ship's systems. Her mind raced with calculations and plans for what came next. The Galactic Empire was nearing Earth, and their demands were now imminent. Every minute mattered, and every mistake could cost them everything. She felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on her, but she knew that humanity had no choice but to move forward or face extinction. The Empire would not negotiate. Their peace was one of subjugation. Their tribute would be a one-way transaction, and humanity would be forced to surrender its resources to the Empire's will. But Voss couldn't allow that to happen. She wouldn't allow it. They had something the Empire could never understand: the fierce spirit of humanity. And now they had a weapon that could match the Empire's technological superiority. The weapon had a mind of its own, but it needed guidance. It needed someone who could see beyond the mechanics of it all and tap into its true potential. And that person was Commander Voss. The deeper she dug into the ship's systems, the more she realized that it wasn't just about the raw firepower or the advanced technology. It was about understanding the ship's purpose. It had been designed not just as a vessel of war, but as a symbol of survival, a tool for overcoming the impossible. The ship responded to its captain in ways that defied conventional logic, and slowly Voss began to form a connection with it. She could feel the ship's presence in her mind, as if it was alive with ancient intelligence and intent. It wasn't simply an artifact of war. It was a sentient force built for defense, built for the survival of those who wielded it. And it had chosen her. But Voss knew the clock was ticking. The Empire would arrive soon, and they would expect an answer. She couldn't afford to wait for more data. They needed to launch an offensive, and fast. With the ship's core powering up to full capacity, Voss made the decision to move ahead. They would begin training the fleet immediately. The ship had already begun to interface with Earth's own technology, but the training would be the most critical part. She called in the best pilots and strategists. The few remaining warships on Earth were hastily refitted with the advanced technology gleaned from the ship in Antarctica. Even if they didn't fully understand it, the humans would have to trust their instincts and their ability to adapt. They had to learn fast, and Voss knew that the resistance wouldn't stand a chance without a united force, one that knew how to use this new power to its fullest. The first test of the new fleet would come sooner than they anticipated. The Empire's advanced scout ships had detected unusual activity near the ice shelf and were already on their way to investigate. Voss watched as the radar screens blinked with red warning signals. The Empire had arrived sooner than expected, but Earth was ready this time. They wouldn't be caught off guard. The rogue fleet was ready for its first true test, and the Empire would soon learn that humanity wasn't as defenseless as they thought. The battle for Earth's survival had begun. The tension in the command center was palpable as the rogue fleet assembled in the cold vastness of space, their formations crisp and their resolve unwavering. The newly equipped warships, retrofitted with the technology from the ancient ship, glowed with a strange, otherworldly energy. Commander Voss stood at the center of the war room, the map of Earth's orbit spread before her, a red blip flashing as the Empire's scout ships neared the planet. They had only moments before the Empire discovered the rogue fleet's presence, and once that happened, there would be no turning back. Voss had seen the fear in the eyes of her fleet's commanders. The power of the Empire was unquestionable, and the warriors of Earth were still learning to wield the strange new weapons they had inherited. But there was no time to second-guess their decisions. This was their moment, the first true test of human ingenuity and will. The Empire would know the humans were not as helpless as they thought. "All units prepare for engagement," Voss ordered, her voice steady but commanding. Her crew responded without hesitation, their training coming to the forefront as they activated their ship's advanced weapon systems. The humming of alien technology reverberated through the fleet, each ship's energy core pulsing like a beating heart. It was as if the ship itself had become part of them, a living force they could not ignore. As the Empire's scouts closed in, Voss made the call to deploy their first strike. A fleet of 5 ships, including her own, would make the first move, taking the Empire by surprise. These were small, agile vessels, capable of evading the Empire's massive ships and striking fast. They had been outfitted with cloaking devices and experimental energy weapons that, though untested, held the potential to destabilize the Empire's advanced shields. The battle erupted without warning. As Voss and her team launched their assault, they saw the Empire's scout ships scramble to retaliate, their communication lines flooding with signals. A barrage of energy blasts erupted across the void, but the Earth fleet was fast, darting between enemy fire and using the ship's strange new cloaking technology to hide in the folds of space. The Empire's scouts, though formidable, were no match for the unpredictability and speed of the human ships. For the first time, the Empire's forces were being outmaneuvered. Voss could feel her pulse quicken as the engagement intensified. It was the first sign that the Empire was beginning to falter under the pressure. The energy weapons from Earth's ships sliced through the Empire's shields like a hot knife through butter. Each strike felt like a declaration. Humanity would not submit. They had fought for this moment, for this chance to push back, and now it was happening. The leader of the Empire's scout fleet, a cold and calculating officer, ordered a retreat. They hadn't anticipated such a strong counterattack, especially not from a species they had dismissed as weak. But the humans were relentless, pressing the assault even as the Empire's forces tried to withdraw. The new Earth ships moved with a precision that suggested they were no longer just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something more. Voss watched the battle unfold on the holographic display, her eyes locked on the retreating Empire fleet. They had delivered their first blow, but it was only a skirmish. The Empire would not leave Earth alone after such an unexpected loss. They would send reinforcements, and this would escalate into a full-scale war. Voss knew that the next phase of the battle would be the true test of Earth's resolve. "We've sent them a message," she said quietly to her second-in-command, who stood beside her. "But this is only the beginning. We can't stop now." The command center erupted in cheers, but Voss held up a hand. "The Empire won't give up so easily. Prepare for the next stage. This fight has only just begun." The victory was brief but significant, a spark in the darkness of a galaxy that had long underestimated humanity's potential. Commander Voss knew the Empire would not let such a loss stand for long. Within hours of the first engagement, the fleet had begun mobilizing reinforcements, a response far more aggressive than anyone on Earth had anticipated. The Empire's scouts had been only the vanguard. Now came the full force of their war machine. In the weeks that followed, Earth's forces trained relentlessly, pushing the limits of their newly acquired technology. The ancient ship beneath Antarctica had provided them with an edge, but the learning curve was steep. They had barely scratched the surface of its full capabilities, yet there was no time for hesitation. The Empire was coming, and the Earth fleet had to be ready. Voss stood before a holographic map of the solar system, watching the steady advance of the Empire's reinforcements. Their fleet was vast, stretching across space like a dark cloud. And it wasn't just numbers that made them dangerous. It was their coordination. The Empire's forces moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, far more disciplined than any Earth force had ever been. They had the advantage of experience, and their weapons were devastatingly advanced. But humanity had something else, a fire that would not be extinguished, a will to survive that was unmatched. "Status report," Voss ordered, her voice sharp as her fingers danced over the controls. The room filled with quick responses, the officers and strategists moving with a sense of urgency. The Earth fleet was now larger, more coordinated, but the enemy was closing in. "We've secured the outer rim of the solar system, Commander," said Lieutenant Kalin, a young officer who had quickly become one of Voss's most trusted lieutenants. "Our fleets are in position, and we're continuing to reinforce the Moon and Mars bases. But we need to establish a stronger line of defense around Earth itself." "We'll need more than just defense," Voss replied, her eyes narrowing as she studied the incoming fleet. The Empire's ships were massive, and even the advanced Earth ships were still struggling to compete with their firepower. If the battle took place close to Earth, the homeworld could be destroyed in a matter of hours. "We need to take the fight to them." The room fell silent as her words sank in. Taking the fight to the Empire wasn't just a matter of engaging in space battles. It meant striking at the heart of their power. And to do that, they would need to infiltrate the Empire's command structure, destabilize their leadership, and create enough chaos to force them into retreat. It was a daring plan, one that would require the best and brightest humanity had to offer. Voss turned to Kellen, her eyes locked on his with a quiet intensity. "We'll need our best pilots on the front lines. Prepare a strike team. I'm not asking for a traditional assault. We're going to hit them where it hurts." Kellen nodded, understanding the gravity of the mission. He knew the risks, but he also knew that humanity's very survival depended on this bold move. "It'll take everything we have," he said, his voice steady. "I know," Voss replied, "but Earth is done waiting. We've been given a chance to strike back, and we're taking it." With that, the plans were set in motion. The Earth fleet would launch a coordinated offensive, pulling the Empire's attention away from Earth's immediate defenses and toward a series of surprise attacks on key strategic points. The idea was to destabilize the Empire's forces from within, sowing confusion and disarray that would allow the human fleet to strike with precision and force. They would need to destroy supply lines, sabotage communication hubs, and strike at the Empire's leadership directly. As the first wave of ships readied for departure, Voss stood on the command deck, her heart pounding with anticipation. The Empire had expected humanity to cower, to bend beneath their demands. But instead, Earth had risen, and now the battle would be fought on humanity's terms. The tides of war had begun to turn, and Voss would lead the charge, knowing that the risks were immense. But so were the rewards. Humanity's future was on the line, and they would fight for it every step of the way. The Earth fleet moved swiftly, cutting through the cold expanse of space with a sense of purpose that had never been seen before. The surprise attacks had begun, and the Empire was unprepared for the ferocity of the human response. The first wave of strikes hit Empire supply lines, disrupting communications and sabotaging key infrastructure across several colonies. It was chaotic, sudden, and brutal, but it was exactly what humanity needed. Every successful strike sent ripples through the Empire's chain of command, and it wasn't long before they realized that Earth was no longer the weak, defenseless planet they had once thought it to be. Commander Voss stood at the center of the strategy room, watching the maps shift as Earth's forces launched attack after attack on the Empire's outlying colonies and supply depots. Her strike teams were striking from the shadows, fast, precise, and relentless. The Empire's forces had no time to react before Earth's ships disappeared into the depths of space, reappearing only to strike again. The element of surprise was their greatest weapon, and the human fleet was using it to its fullest. But the Empire wasn't blind to this sudden shift. Their leaders were not foolish. They quickly realized that they had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt. In response, they began redirecting their forces, sending reinforcements to the front lines in an effort to stop the onslaught. The battle lines began to shift, and the first major clash between the two forces was imminent. Voss's eyes narrowed as the incoming signals flashed across the command center's display. The Empire's main fleet was mobilizing, and they were moving in full force toward Earth. The element of surprise was no longer on their side. It was time to face the full might of the Empire, and humanity had to be ready. "We've hit them where it hurts," Voss said, her voice low but firm. "But now we need to take it to the next level. We need to break their morale. If we don't, we'll lose everything we've gained." Her team agreed without hesitation. The next phase of the plan would be the most dangerous yet. They would need to strike deep into the heart of the Empire's power, attacking key targets that would cripple their leadership and command structure. These were high-risk missions, ones that would take everything the humans had. But it was no longer about winning a single battle. It was about destabilizing the Empire for good. Earth's fleet gathered near the edge of the solar system, preparing for a full-scale assault on the Empire's flagship, the ship that controlled their entire operation. It was a gargantuan vessel, bristling with weapons and defenses that had once seemed insurmountable. The Empire's leadership resided within its walls, and it was this ship that held the key to their strategy. Taking it down would be the tipping point. The Empire's morale would crumble, and their resolve would shatter. As Earth's fleet jumped into hyperspace and began their approach, Voss felt a surge of emotion. Fear, yes, but also a fierce determination. They had come this far, and there was no turning back. The battle ahead would be unlike anything they had ever faced. The Empire's flagship would not fall easily, but they had something the Empire could never understand: the power of unity, of people willing to fight and die for their home. The approach to the flagship was slow and calculated. Every move, every strategy had to be executed with precision. But as the fleet neared their target, the Empire made its move. The flagship unleashed a volley of energy fire that sent shockwaves through space. But the Earth fleet was already engaged in a high-speed dogfight with the Empire's interceptors, their agility and unpredictability giving them an edge. The Empire's forces tried to form a defensive perimeter around their flagship, but they were struggling to keep up with the ferocity and speed of the human assault. Voss's ship led the charge, slipping through enemy fire and locking onto the flagship's exposed weak points. The first wave of missiles tore into the Empire's defenses, and for the first time in the war, a human fleet had breached the Empire's once impenetrable shield. "We've made it past the first line of defense," Voss shouted into the comms. "Prepare for the final strike." As the Earth fleet pressed forward, they knew that the next moments would determine everything. The Empire was on the verge of collapse, but if they could just land one final blow, humanity would prove that they had not only survived, they had won. The final battle was upon them, and everything had led to this moment. Commander Voss stood at the helm of her ship, the tension thick in the air as her fleet closed in on the Empire's flagship. The stakes had never been higher. The battle for Earth's future was not just about defeating the Empire. It was about showing them that humanity would never bow to tyranny. They had fought for their home, for their freedom, and now they were going to win. The flagship loomed ahead, a gargantuan behemoth of metal and power, its massive weapon systems already targeting the oncoming Earth fleet. The Empire was throwing everything they had into the fight, but Earth's forces were not backing down. Voss's ship danced through a hailstorm of energy blasts, weaving in and out of the deadly fire, while her crew fired back with everything they had. "Focus fire on the central command tower," Voss commanded, her voice sharp as she directed her fleet's maneuvers. "We take out their leadership, and the rest will fall." The rogue fleet, a mixture of Earth's best pilots and military leaders, responded with precise coordination. Every ship had a role to play, and each one carried the hopes of a planet that had once been on the brink of annihilation. The energy blasts from their ships tore into the Empire's defenses, and for the first time, the enemy's shields began to flicker and falter. Voss could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She knew this would be their one chance. If they failed, Earth would face total destruction. But as the flagship's defenses cracked under the pressure, she felt a flicker of hope. They could do this. They had to. As her ship dove closer to the central command tower, a massive explosion ripped through the Empire's defenses, sending a shockwave through space. For a moment, everything went still. The flagship's weapon systems faltered, and the leadership aboard the ship began scrambling to regain control. It was their weakness. Just like the Empire had underestimated humanity, they had underestimated the strength that came from fighting for survival. "We've got a clear shot," Voss shouted, her hands gripping the controls with unyielding determination. "Prepare to fire everything." The ships of the rogue fleet, now unified in their purpose, unleashed a final barrage of firepower. Missiles, energy blasts, and torpedoes streaked toward the heart of the Empire's command center. The flagship shuddered under the relentless assault as its shields collapsed, and the central tower, where the Empire's leadership resided, was torn apart in a massive explosion. The flagship's engines flickered, and its once immense power began to wane. Voss watched in stunned silence as the Empire flagship listed to one side, unable to maintain its course. The once feared vessel had been brought to its knees by the very humans it had sought to crush. The Empire had underestimated their resilience, their ability to adapt, and the strength of a people who fought for more than just survival. They'd fought for freedom, for hope, and for the future. As the flagship's lights went dark, Voss exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she had been holding. The battle was over. The Empire was on the brink of collapse. "Commander," Callan's voice came over the comms. "We did it. They're retreating." The realization hit her like a wave, and she allowed herself a rare, fleeting moment of relief. Humanity had won. The Empire had been driven from their home, their control shattered in an instant. The victory wasn't just a military one. It was a triumph of willpower, of the human spirit that refused to be crushed under the heel of an empire that thought they could rule the galaxy. Earth was free. But even as they celebrated their victory, Voss knew this was only the beginning. There would be consequences to their actions, and the Empire's reach would not vanish overnight. But humanity had proven that it could stand toe-to-toe with the mightiest force in the universe. They had defended their planet, and now they would rebuild, stronger than ever. As the rogue fleet turned back toward Earth, the vastness of space stretched before them. A new chapter in human history had begun. They had taken the first step not just toward survival, but toward a future where humanity would no longer be the prey of the galaxy. They would be its fiercest protector. And for the first time in a long time, Earth could finally breathe easy.